Because I'm going to jump into some of the stats now. You may have kind of questions about things. We've got half an hour, so I'm going to kind of like skip across the various sections just to make sure you kind of get the full breadth of what we're talking about. If you've got any specific questions, there's a little Q&A section. If you want to put the questions in there, we'll have 5 minutes or so at the end of the webinar to hopefully answer at least some of those questions. If they require further research or anything like that, we're of course happy to try and answer those. We might have to kind of get back to you after the webinar though. So let's see how it goes. So yeah, at a glance, this report, so there are 40 different brands considered. They are split 3 ways. So we've got the big e-commerce stores, places like Boots and Superdrug. It would feel a disservice not to kind of include those guys and where they stand amidst the rest. And we've got general cosmetics stores that maybe do only cosmetics, but men and women. And then the third group, which is specifically kind of male grooming brands. As you'll see in a bit, there's quite an equal split of where these guys sit across the market. So it gives a good spread really. We'll be talking through where they sit in terms of organic visibility. We're talking about how they kind of match up against each other with reviews. And as well in terms of kind of opportunities and trends on a keyword level. We'll be talking through a load of things like that with a few kind of perhaps speculative predictions chucked in at the end for good measure. So if you've seen the report and if you've got that link now and you can download it and open it, feel free to use it as a kind of accompaniment while we talk through it. This is right at the start of the report. It's the year-on-year visibility change. So often kind of one of the favorite parts, I suppose, of our readers in the reports. This looks at where all of the different brands have kind of moved over the last 12 months in terms of organic visibility. If you're not familiar with the term organic visibility, it is essentially a unit score that represents how many keywords and the popularity of those keywords and how many of those each site appears for in Google. So, I think hair trimmers for men is a keyword. If you're position 1 in that and it's got a certain amount of searches a month, that might be worth 100 visibility points. You extrapolate that across the whole site and everything it ranks for, and that is your visibility. So it is a fairly kind of overall look at things, but gives generally a good measure of where people sit. So yeah, in terms of the top 40, some of the kind of top level things that we've seen. So average market growth is up 33% year on year. So by that we mean kind of the actual kind of number of searches in this market has really risen up. Obviously with coronavirus and lockdown happening, that is something we've seen fairly universally across kind of e-commerce markets. So not kind of too revelatory there. A lot of those guys, so 72% have kind of gone with the tide. They've seen, hopefully on the bottom line, they've seen some really good results off the back of kind of increased online activity through lockdown. However, 43%, their numbers are wrong there, 33%, sorry, haven't met that market growth. So it doesn't necessarily mean they've declined year on year in terms of visibility. They may have managed to kind of hold on to what they've got. But when you consider that against the fairly big growth that a lot of these brands have seen, they've not quite caught up with that level of growth. That can be for a whole host of reasons, whether it's actually in their marketing strategy, whether it's in, could go right down to supply chain and things like that, their ability to service the increased demand. It could be for a number of reasons. I don't want to speculate too hard on that. But yeah, 33% have kind of fell below that market growth. Of those growing successfully, just 9 of those are male grooming specialists. Again, we're talking about kind of organic visibility in particular here. So I know a lot of you guys are absolutely caning it on the paid social side of things, and you may be looking at a red little score there and thinking, oh, we're killing it this year. We are not saying that that's not the case. This is only for organic. Of those 9 brands that are growing, there's only one that's actually kind of what we consider top of market, so in the top 15, and that is Bulldog Skincare. They've looked to have had a great year. They're not the only male grooming specialist within the top 15. There's also Mankind as well, but they've dropped a position in the ranks and had a 18% visibility loss year on year as well. So further kind of overall findings, as I've said, there's only 2 male grooming specialists in the top 10. The point here, I suppose, would be there's plenty of room for more of those kind of specialist challenger brands to come in and make an impact. So I'm sure you guys have seen the likes of Manscaped, which we'll touch on a little bit in the future, have been certainly loud voices across other channels in the past 12 months. Again, nothing too revelatory on the search trend side of things. Lockdown happened, everyone started Googling stuff a hell of a lot more. Is there anything that we can kind of question beyond that kind of face value stat? I think really is the value is in looking beyond this year and going, of those ones that have grown and of the keywords that have grown in the brands, which ones are kind of here to stay and which ones are going to fall right back down when we go to, you know, just going out shopping in town and things like that to get some of the essentials. Can't answer that one yet, but it's definitely a question we should all be asking. Okay, to look into the kind of winners of this report a little bit more. So we've got the top 5 kind of specialist winners at the top there, which are Bulldog, the English Shaving Company, Hims, Edwin Yaga, one of those 2, and Beast, all caps, love it. So those guys have really performed well in the past year. So kind of hats off to those guys. You may be looking at those in comparison to Boots, and you're going, Boots is a lot bigger than Bulldog in my head. That is true. We've put the kind of generic winners at the bottom there as well. So we've got Boots, Superdrug, Cult Beauty, Aston and Fincher, and Wow in the top 5. Obviously, those guys are multi-category. So in comparison, I suppose, for the sake of this report, the achievement is not as grand as those specialist companies, but yeah, still a lot of growth to be had there. Generally, the specialists that are winning have a really kind of slick site experience, have a really strong brand, and are using that to kind of keep their elbows in at the top of the table there, really. In terms of visibility losses, so again, this isn't necessarily a reflection of revenue and bottom line. I think it's really important to stress that, you know, we're not here saying that these businesses are dying. That's not the case at all. But in terms of organic visibility losses, we've got Shavers, Lynx, Black Hair Care, Dollar Shave Club, and Manscaped at the bottom. As I said, I'm sure you've seen Manscaped, they're all over the shop. They've got UFC partnerships, they've got podcast adverts, YouTube adverts. You struggle to turn digital street corner without seeing their face somewhere. They're at the bottom of that visibility losses. Hopefully that gives you some indication of, you know, that these guys are still here to stay. I didn't look into the kind of reasons with all of these guys. However, with Manscaped, if you're interested, one of the reasons it looks like for their loss is they recently migrated their site from a universal.com subdomain to kind of location-based prefixes. So in the UK, it is now uk.manscaped.com, where it wasn't before. It looks like search engines haven't taken too kindly to that. However, and this is the case with, you know, certainly Dollar Shave Club and you know, Lynx is a big brand. All of the guys really, they are sleeping giants. I don't think it'd take a long and much of a large effort really to get them back near the top of the table once they start changing things on their site and in their marketing strategy. Is there any other points that I wanted to pull out from this one? No, I think that's it really. So just a note on the Manscaped brand searches as well. I'll stop bigging them up soon. But yeah, the brand searches are up 600% year on year in Q1. So if you ever wondered what a partnership with UFC, if you're going after 18 to 40 something men would get you, it's probably something to do with that. Okay, so that's on the kind of brand organic visibility side of things. I wanted to look at a few kind of keywords specifically as well. There are tons of keywords that we consider when looking at these emerging trends, declining trends and competition, this is just really the highlight round. So as you can see for opportunity keywords, and by opportunity, I mean kind of relatively low competition. So where you perhaps expect to see less people absolutely spending all their SEO resource trying to rank for, on the paid side where there's perhaps less bid wars going on to appear near the top. For me, the standout beyond this list really as well was there's a call out for kind of informational content in the opportunity pages. So perhaps that's kind of locked down. People all of a sudden find themselves with a 5 o'clock shadow or wanted to neaten it up a bit. Perhaps it's all these self haircuts or getting your spouse to give you a short back and sides all of a sudden where you go to the barbers. I imagine that's at least part to do with it. But yeah, a lot of informational queries. So skincare routine for men, beard care could in a certain context be a commercial keyword, but for me, just the lack of, if it was a commercial keyword, I feel like it would more often come through as something like beard wax or beard oil or something like that. People would know what they were searching for. They're definitely a few levels up where they don't have all the details yet. That's kind of reflected in the SERPs as well. So if you Google a good few of those top keywords, they are dominated by kind of men's publications, i.e. GQ, Esquire, those kind of guys. The actual content that's appearing is guide content. So it's kind of long form, maybe with video guides in it, kind of explaining different types of skincare routines, different types of beard care, like wax versus oil, all those kind of things, which kind of enforces, I suppose, that guess that it is people trying to figure out information rather than trying to, get rid of their cash. And one thing you can't see here, but kind of you can see, hopefully you can see anecdotally as well, is that a lot of the guys who aren't appearing on the organic side of things, but are really prevalent on paid social. So I'm thinking the people like Lumin, like Acre, that you won't see in these reports because they've got all their eggs and a few more in the Zucks basket with Facebook and Instagram advertising. A lot of their content, if you check out the Facebook ad library, you can see what they're running. A lot of it will be kind of semi-ad, but with like guide content in there. So Lumen do their like free trial, but they kind of explain the difference and how you should be using products throughout that ad as well. Then on to the high competition keywords. So this is where everyone's kind of battling for ad heavy SERPs, loads of stuff going on in there. I thought it was quite funny that Google doesn't really know the difference between clippers and trimmers. I suppose AI doesn't have much body hair to deal with, but for me, there was always clippers are for your head, and trimmers are kind of more of a fine-tuning instrument. However, if you search for hair trimmer for men, you'll get a load of clippers coming up. That has to change eventually. Surely they will get the difference. Also on those keywords, you are still getting informational content appearing. It's slightly different and kind of verging on affiliate with these types of keywords. So again, Esquire are coming up, GQ are coming up. However, instead of a guide, you'll be getting kind of like best hair clippers, not trimmers for men. And they'll be talking through, as you'll see, top list with a buy now button, probably affiliate code attached to it. I do think there's an opportunity to kind of capitalize on that. I think from a personal point of view, I would look to kind of digital PR and outreach to get kind of your product, especially if you're a kind of startup and you're a emerging disruptor, look to PR and outreach to try and get your product in front of those guys and get relevant links to your product as well to try and kind of penetrate through those informational results. That was the high competition.
Question before we move on, if you don't mind, Brett, from the room. Lisa is asking around how we calculate those competitiveness scores.
So we use a variety of sources, one of which is kind of Google's keyword tool, which gives kind of various paid media stats around it. So I believe, Marcus, correct me if I'm wrong here, but we use the kind of effectively the PPC competitiveness to generate that kind of competition. So kind of why I mentioned ads in there, in that you know, if people are spending a lot of money tripping over themselves to get themselves to appear to an ad, that's a good indication that it is also a kind of competitive landscape in all aspects and across all channels, really.
Yeah, and we cross-reference keyword difficulty scores as well from software such as Ahrefs as well, and sort of aggregate those. So we're not relying on just one data source.
Fab. Okay, in terms of reviews, so to get this data, we pull review data from their kind of most prominent, often Trustpilot review platform. Always really interesting results because it doesn't necessarily reflect the just like, you know, if it's a commercial giant that's just absolutely raking it in as a big retail store, bricks and mortar, the lot, it is often the outliers that kind of sit at the top here. And I think, you know, that's true to word with Harry's at the top of the list on the reviews. So they've got an average of 4.8 stars across 14K different reviews, which is pretty stellar, really. What I thought was quite interesting. So I'm a Harry's customer myself, and I have not really experienced any kind of post-purchase incentivization through those guys. There's not really a way for me to dig into each review and find out how they're getting those beyond that. However, anecdotally, looking through the reviews, a lot of them came from their ability to handle problems with orders and things like that. So if someone's ordered the wrong product, or if someone's been misdelivered in some way, they appear to be at least very responsive in their ability to handle any kind of last minute corrections, which is kind of anecdotally where most of those review comments are coming from. I've just realized that it's 10:02, so I'm going to start speeding up a little bit. Subscription models naturally kind of lean towards giving more avenues for customers to review them, just because there's that kind of almost enforced regular touch point. I realize for the e-commerce guys, it's not quite so easy. I think the answer there for me is just really nailing down the post-purchase incentivization, especially if you're multi-category e-commerce. It gives you more options to offer kind of discounts across categories and various vouchers and what have you. And probably other thing of note would be Manscaped at the bottom. So obviously we said they've lost in terms of organic visibility. However, they're doing really well on reviews. To me, kind of Manscaped are where Harry's were kind of maybe 4 years ago. If you're into the podcast and things like that, there was a time where you couldn't listen to a podcast without hearing Harry's name getting mentioned at various points throughout it. I can't stress enough how much I think these guys are going to skyrocket as soon as they start doing a few popping the right moves on their site. Definitely
Brett, there's a question from the room on your specific journey when it came to purchasing Harry's. Do you remember what that point of acquisition was?
I was listening to Hello Internet podcast, which was it's CGP Grey, who's a popular animated YouTube guy, and what's the other, Brady Harron, who runs the YouTube channel for Numberphile, which is like maths and stuff. They basically just talk about proper geeky stuff, and they kind of did it for a few years. They were one of the early kind of adopters of them as a podcast advertiser. So yeah, I picked it up through that.
Niche.
Yeah, so there we go. I've got a good memory, right? But yeah, podcast adverts, they do, in my case, work anyway.
Okay.
Great. Okay, on to the predictions, and then we'll jump over to a bit of a deep dive into Bulldog, who've done really well. So these are my predictions. Views are my own. Don't sue me if you don't like them. So what I expect to see next year, emergent brand stabilization. I touched on this earlier, but with the likes of Lumen, Acre, Manscaped arguably emergent, even though they've got an absolute wedge of cash sat behind them. Not just for male grooming products as well, in kind of lots of male specific markets. So Just Wears was one that really stood out to me in the male underwear market as being a bit of a disruptor and being really emerging. I expect that the dust to kind of settle and the dominant ones to really show as having a lot of longevity in there. Also, the kind of competition on the paid social, I feel like with, you know, the paid social ad budgets have gone up so much over the past year, and the competition has gone up kind of gone up with that. I think for a lot of brands, they're going to be looking at paid social now as an untenable long-term option, certainly at the budgets that they're currently putting towards it. And, you know, a lot of these guys, that is, you know, 99% of their revenue source comes from paid channels. I think we'll start to see a lot more diversification, a lot more people starting to take, you know, things like reviews, things like organic, things like content marketing and PR. I think we'll start to see a lot more of the guys across that. I also expect to see Manscaped nearing the top 10. I'm putting my neck on the line there, but I think they're going to go from bottom of the losses to right up there. And also the Bulldog Skincare will maintain momentum and reach the top 10. To go into a little bit more detail on Bulldog, Dave has kindly put together a bit of a deep dive into some of the things that he thinks they're doing well and some of the things he thinks they're not doing well as well. So yeah, I'll chuck over to you, Dave. Is that all right?
Yeah, it's exactly what Brett said. I've kind of had a bit of time on the site to kind of see what I like, what could possibly be contributing to the year-on-year improvements and success, and like Brett said, the probable likely profitable future. So firstly, I dug into the Bulldog Skincare kind of ranking keywords from Ahrefs. And it was interesting to see that it's their product pages that rank for the generic terms rather than category or subcategories. This is on kind of branded keywords as well as non-branded keywords. So my first question was, why are product pages ranking ahead of the category and the subcategory pages? So then I naturally looked at kind of an example subcategory page, which was the razors page. And as you can see, the keyword targeting is quite poor. From a title tag point of view, kind of razors, products, and razor blades is very generic. The UX isn't anything revolutionary. It's just a PLP page. There's only a bit of top copy. So from a satisfying customer intent, if you're looking for a men's razor, this page isn't doing much for you. So then my next kind of step in the rabbit hole was to look at the product pages. And the product page that ranks for kind of razor and Bulldog razor and men's razor is the original bamboo razor. And as you can see from some of the screenshots, this product page offers a much better user experience for customers. It's got a clean design, loads of information on the product. They are promoting their USPs of their kind of smoothness and sustainability. Additionally, the title tag is a lot better, so that keyword targeting is more of a focus on the product page, which is serving a much better intent than the kind of the PLP. They also link to relevant additional products, so best used with, which is again going to be a nice little way to add the average order value up. Despite this though, despite the kind of the better product page, the rankings for kind of non-branded keywords aren't doing as well as you would expect. So men's razor, which they target in the title tag for this product, is actually only P33. A lot of other rankings are kind of P80 odd, P50 odd. So from kind of first glance, it looks like while the subcategory page is not particularly optimized, the product page is well optimized, but it's not targeting generic keywords. So that kind of makes you think, how are they driving people to the website? And from what I kind of gathered is it's a heavy emphasis on brand. For example, looking at Ahrefs keyword ranking data again, 13 of the 15 highest traffic driving keywords are for the UK. For the UK are branded, as opposed to kind of non-branded. In fact, it's only beard wax and beard shampoo, which are non-brand keywords, ranking in the top 15 traffic drivers. So this shows how important brand recognition is for Bulldog Skincare. This is a branding exercise that has gone on for the last couple of years. In 2016, they started running their first TV ad campaign, which did incredible success for them. An increase of 182% in growth rate. They achieved at the time their highest ever market share of 16.5%, no doubt higher than that, as you can see more details in this year's report. And the ad campaign was nominated for a TV award in the TV Planning Award, so hugely successful. Brand is their absolute focus, and it allows them to not really target the generic non-branded keywords. I believe I'm having cam issues, by the way, so I apologize for that. The kind of next big thing that Bulldog Skincare are really focusing on, which I noticed, they are huge proponents of kind of ethical values across the business. They promote recycling schemes, carbon neutral efforts, and various other kind of cruelty-free production and manufacturing, which this is just another kind of addition which just really emphasizes the brand and the brand core values, and again promotes Bulldog as a brand that customers want to work with. So what have we learned? We can see that Bulldog really emphasise their product pages over their subcategory pages by offering great user experience, satisfying the intent. They have great, strong brand building exercises with offline marketing techniques such as TV commercials, billboards, etc. And they are promoting their ethical and kind of eco-friendly values throughout the business. With that being said, of course, there are ways to improve. I think the biggest opportunity for these guys would be owning the .com. So when you go to bulldogskincare.com, you're taken to a placeholder page, which encourages users to visit their preferred kind of language and location. So there's a UK subfolder, there's a US subdomain, but no one really owns the .com. It's a wasted opportunity, in my opinion, because if we look at the next slide, traditionally the .com on a website is usually owned by the UK or the US version. Looking at the traffic distribution data from SEMrush, you can see that the US is the kind of the traffic leader here. So in my opinion, I think that the .com should be overtaken by the US. So get rid of the US subdomain, take advantage of all of the kind of external backlinks to this root domain, the authority as highlighted by the majestic kind of graphs there. The top level domain is the most powerful page on any website. So I think this is a wasted opportunity and could, if actioned, push Bulldog Skincare even further up the charts. So that's kind of a bit of a recap on Bulldog. Next, I kind of wanted to just talk about some of the major stories and search news of the last couple of months. The biggest one is probably the most recent one, which is the introduction of MUM, so the multitask unified model, as released by Google only a few days ago. This claims to be 1,000 times more powerful than BERT and looks to answer complex questions in as fewer searches as possible. According to the data, it takes around 8 searches for people to get the answer they require on complex questions. So this kind of new model looks to improve that. It can also look at answers in different languages. So if there is an answer to your question in Japanese or German, it can return it to you in English, which is extremely powerful. So one to consider of whether your content is answering complex questions as easily as it could be. While this model is going to be introduced to help that, can you kind of help it on its way? And then Core Web Vitals, I'll briefly touch on because I'm sure everybody is sick of hearing of Core Web Vitals. Recently pushed back, of course, to mid-June for the rollout, meant to be only a minor signal. And an SEO poll from Marie Haynes recently showed that 60% of SEOs have improved their Core Web Vitals for the page experience update that is due this summer. So kind of are you part of that 60%? Should you be? Kind of what a topic for conversation. And that is it. Marcus?
You're on mute, Marcus.
Sorry, there are a couple of questions in the chat that we'll answer in just a second. I'm going to speed through this really quickly, but as a continuation of the value swap, we do offer free search or paid media campaign audits. So on an organic search level, we'd essentially run 3 vertical audits across your technical SEO, your content, and your link profile, and ascertain what the opportunities are. So it's all in the context of what your competitors are doing and accessing and understanding the data. When it comes to the opportunities and understanding that size of the prize, it's very much a challenges and solutions based, so is meant to be genuinely actionable. We put about 10 to 12 hours into these. We're very anti-creds deck. This should all be about you, or at least 90% of it anyway. So if anyone wants to talk with me about this, there is a link in the report where you can book a meeting with me. Feel free to pick up the phone and give me a call on my mobile, as you can see here, or drop me an email.
Nice one. Thanks, Marcus. So I've had the, I've not actually been able to see any of the questions come through because I've been on screen share and I don't press any buttons while it's doing that. Mm-hmm. If you guys have any last minute questions to throw in, if you want to throw them in now, we'll get through as many as we can. We are running a little bit late, but we'll see how we go with another 4 minutes. Let's call it 10 minutes late and see how we get on. Were there any that jumped out to you guys?
So there were a couple of questions around how we measure some of the data, which I hope we answered fairly well. One question that we didn't answer was around the low volume of searches associated with grooming as a topic from a search behavior perspective. So the question is, in the UK, and this is coming from a digital marketing attendant that runs UK marketing from overseas. What do searchers refer to rather than grooming, which is a very low search volume? What level of category should we really be using as a keyword targeting strategy? Would it be skincare? Would it be something more specific than that?
I'm not sure I fully understand the question yet. So in terms of like opportunity for kind of opening into a category, is that, or?
From a search behavior perspective, in the search volume data, grooming is a very low search volume keyword, and all of the the longer tail grooming type topics. So how niche should we go when it comes to keyword targeting? Would it be more on a subcategory basis, such as skincare? Should we be focusing more on a product to product basis, or should we be focusing potentially more on the issues that arise within the grooming sector and answering those questions really well to drive people to purchase?
Cool. All right, I get you. Yeah, I agree. So grooming, I mean, we call this the Male Grooming Report, as it felt like the best kind of overall phrase for it. In terms of what categories you want to have and subcategories and things like that, obviously massively dependent on what you are selling, what your strong points are, and things like that. I'd probably say it'd be best if we can have a look at the site, or your kind of plan site if it's not there yet, and we can maybe shed some light on maybe where to go in terms of competition. What I would say to the kind of second half of that question would be, definitely, as well as going with the commercial stuff, try and plan from the start to build in kind of more informational content, more query-based things. So whether that's information actually within your PLPs or category pages or whatever you want to call them, or trying to kind of catch people through content marketing at a slightly earlier stage of the buying cycle. So kind of like what we were saying earlier around the opportunity keywords, where people are searching for like skincare routine for men, that suggests, and again, this is kind of my own thoughts, but I would look into the possibility that means that people don't really understand, like, you're supposed to use scrubs, toners and all those type of things. There's definitely a gap in their knowledge. So think about, I've got these products and I'm trying to sell them, like what questions can I answer to make people kind of land at my product as the answer to it, kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so what the question is, what about for a skincare brand, which I think you answered well there, Brett. I think it really depends on what your product offering is. If you are able to cover those subcategories within skincare, then really it's about landing people on a landing page that then nurtures them and educates them towards what their solution would be, whether it's that you just want a daily wash, or whether you're willing to do like a full cleanse, tone, moisturize, etc. type of approach. Definitely. There is a question that has popped up as well, Brett, around how male grooming specialists can win against big companies like Boots. Where do we pick our battlegrounds?
Cool, good question. So I suppose one of the advantages for me that the more kind of like boutique-y or specialist brands have, so like like Manscaped or someone like that does a really specific product and a lot fewer. It's the best analogy I can think of is it's like when you go to a restaurant, or there's two restaurants next to each other. One has like 50 things on the menu, the other one's got 6. My inclination is always to think that the one with 6 kind of does them better than the one with 40 something. The strengths you can play to there are hopefully kind of being able to offer a much clearer idea of in the sense of trimmers, like we do 1 or 2 trimmers because they're the best ones for a very specific thing, rather than where Boots has got Braun and Wall and Phillips and got all of these different trimmers. You're saying that this one is the most effective. So clarity is one aspect. The ability, not having to kind of fair play to all of the different brands that you're stocking as a retailer, is also a kind of strength when it comes to your content. So again, going back to that idea of informational content, trying to catch people at earlier stages through content marketing. If you can be the one to answer their queries, you as a specialist probably know a lot more. I can't imagine the amount of market research one would have gone through to kind of bring out their own kind of male grooming product in the kind of trimmer space and things like that. You're going to know a lot of that. You're going to have that knowledge and that experience in making it, and the problems that led you there and all those type of things. Like, share that content, and hopefully you're going to be, again, answering the questions at the right time for people. That's one thing. And then probably the final one again is that you know, you're selling a smaller spread of things, so you can pay more attention to the customers that you are selling to. You look at Harry's, they now do sell like shower gel and a few things. It's quite kind of pricey compared to you know, Tesco, but they have that really kind of close communication, or at least the capability to have that close communication with their customer base, where, you know, Boots could arguably have that too, but they're doing it across everything. So it just doesn't feel, I keep thinking the word intimate, I'm not sure it's the right word to use, but hopefully you know what I mean.
Excellent. I don't see any more questions, so we'll say thank you very much. And I think this video has been uploaded to our YouTube channel as well, so we can share links with you. But you have our details if you have any more questions or just want to chat.
Nice one. Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much,
everyone.
Bye.